Just let me hear some of that rock and roll music. Well, actually, don't just let me hear rock and roll. Let me hear love songs, and let me hear ballads, and let me hear music that was featured in films. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 3 of our little mini series of compilation albums. Absolutely lovely to have you here, and I really appreciate you tuning in. So if you've been following the series, you know that we're going through chronologically all the compilation albums that have been released, and at the end we're going to do a ranking video which is going to sort out the winners from the losers and sort out that whole wheat from the chaff thing. If you've missed episodes 1 and 2, where the hell have you been? But if you have missed episodes 1 and 2 and you want to catch up with them, there's a link to them in the description, or if you go to the end of the video, there'll be an end card with the playlist of all the episodes so far, so you can catch up there. I want to say a big thank you to all the subscribers that have got involved in this series. We've had some really great comments from everyone, and as usual, you know, I always want to hear your comments, so stick them down below. Tell me what you think of the albums that we're going to be discussing on this video, and as you know, I always reply to all the comments. So between 1976 and 1982, EMI or Capitol took it upon themselves to release a whole bunch of compilation albums that what I like to call the genre compilation albums, because each one had its own little genre. I'm not sure why they decided that we needed to listen to the Beatles in little compartments at that time, because, you know, one of the things that we all really love about the Beatles was that they were so diverse and mixed it up, and you could have on a Beatles album, you could have a rock and roll song followed by a ballad followed by a love song, and it all flowed beautifully. And so I'm not sure why we had to have these kind of, I suppose what we would call now a playlist type album. So in January 1976, the Beatles' contract with EMI expired, and what this meant was that EMI no longer had to ask the Beatles permission to put out albums, and they took full advantage of this and put them out in abundance. The first of these, in April 1976, was Rock and Roll Music, a double album, and featuring this absolutely appalling sleeve design. Now, whilst John Lennon didn't really care much about what went on the album, he did take particular offence at this sleeve, calling it a Monkees album reject, and he wasn't wrong really. He suggested that they used some of Astrid's old black and white photos from the Hamburg days as the cover. That was rejected. When that was rejected, he offered to design the sleeve himself, and that was also rejected. So they went with this. Nice work. Back cover looked like that. So let's just have a look at this gatefold sleeve. So as you can see, it's full of American icons, burgers, Coke, jukeboxes, and Marilyn Monroe, none of which have got anything whatsoever to do with the Beatles. Let's have a look at the track listing, which is not a bad track listing. That's side 1 and side 2. And that's side 3 and 4. It's a good track listing. Let's just have a look at the vinyl. On the 70s Parlophone label, mine is. So though Capitol didn't have to ask the Beatles permission to release a Beatles album anymore, they did out of courtesy invite George Martin to come into Capitol and listen to the stereo mixes that they'd done of the tracks that were going to be on the album. When George Martin heard these, he was appalled. "I'm appalled," he said, in a rather stern but British way. And he took it upon himself to remix all the tracks himself. And what he did with his remixes, he narrowed the stereo image so that the vocals were more towards the centre. He added some compression, and for some reason he switched the left channel to the right channel and the right channel to the left channel. And I can't think of any reasonable reason why he would have done that, apart from the fact that it was an error. Anyway, Parlophone in the UK said, absolutely no way, we're not accepting these. We're not allowed to tamper with the original recordings. In America, they did use those mixes, so there is a variation between the UK album and the American album. So what we did end up getting was the first stereo versions of the Long Tall Sally EP and I'm Down. In fact, the first time that the Long Tall Sally EP and I'm Down had been released on an album in the UK. When you do look at that appalling inside of the gatefold sleeve with all its American icons of burgers and Coca-Cola and jukeboxes and Marilyn Monroe, you do wonder what the thought process was of putting this album together, because in my opinion the Beatles didn't really write that many out and out 50s style rock and roll tunes. I think, you know, maybe I Saw Us Standing There, I Want to Be Your Man are amongst a couple that they did. Rock and roll is quite a hard genre to define because it is so broad. I mean, do they mean 1950s American rock and roll, or do we talk about the rock and roll that we're all familiar with now, which is basically anything that's a bit fast and played with guitars and drums? So it's difficult to say, but I do think that there's a couple of songs on here that maybe don't really fit the bill. Drive My Car is very dubious, and I'm absolutely not having Got to Get You Into My Life as a rock and roll song. That's a sort of a Motown Stax influenced track, and I don't think that fits on here at all. So I think really when you're talking about out and out rock and roll music, you're mostly talking about the songs that the Beatles covered, and there's lots of them on here. There's 28 tracks on the whole album, 12 of them are covers, and side 2, the whole side is cover songs. So I think that they hit the nail on the head there. They missed it on other areas of this album. So for me, rock and roll music was a very important album. It was the first compilation that came out once I'd become a Beatles fan. So I bought it, but more importantly than that, because it contained all 4 tracks from the Long Tall Sally EP, it meant that I got the 4 tracks that I was missing in completing my collection. So for me, this is a really important album. I think the track listing is good, if not all rock and roll. Side 4 is an absolute belter. Back in the USSR, Helter Skelter, Taxman, Got to Get You Into My Life, Hey Bulldog, Birthday and Get Back. Absolute banger. I had a listen to it before making this video. It doesn't sound too bad. I'm not quite sure what George Martin was so upset about. It's not brilliant, but it's okay. It's okay. The sound quality is okay to these old ears anyway. So that's the rock and roll music album. So in 1977, while Great Britain was tightly within the grip of the thrashy, pogo-y, punky, snot-tossing punk rock, Parlophone decided to put out this album, Love Songs. An album crammed full of love songs. So the front cover looked like that, and the back cover had all the tracks on it, as you can see. And the centerfold is a fantastic photo, actually. This is known as the Mount Rushmore photo of the Beatles from 1967. Now, here in Britain, I think we were slightly shortchanged by the love song albums, because in America, the Capitol version had this image here, was kind of in like gold foil and sort of stood out a bit, and the sleeve had a kind of a mock leather sort of texture to it, whereas this UK one is just smooth. And we'll have a look at the vinyl. So it's just your standard 1970s parlophone. Now in America, they had custom labels in America which had this image here on the label, very nice indeed. And the American version also came with a sort of a parchmenty lyrics book, which was very nice as well. But I didn't get any of that in my copy, and I bought this when it came out as well. I didn't need to buy it because I had everything that was on it, but I bought it because I wanted to. And I played this recently. Obviously, I've played all these albums before talking about them for this video, and I was pleasantly surprised at how this album sounded. I thought it sounded really good. It had plenty of bass, and it just sounded very nice. And it was my copy is very, very clean indeed, which is a sign that I didn't play it very often, which is probably true. I'll just read out the track listing, because I think when I showed the back cover, I don't think mine is very clear, because the American version also had that in sort of a gold, a very strong gold print. So the album kicks off with Yesterday. Now, as great as Yesterday is, it's no way a side one, track one song for me, but it kicks off this album. Then we've got I Follow the Sun, I Need You Girl, In My Life, Words of Love, Here, There and Everywhere, quite a strong first side. Then side two, Something and I Love Her, If I Fell, I'll Be Back, Tell Me What You See, and Yes It Is. Side three, Michelle, It's Only Love, You're Gonna Lose That Girl, Every Little Thing, For No One, She's Leaving Home. Is that really a love song? I'm not sure that it is. And then side four, The Long and Winding Road, This Boy, Norwegian Wood, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, I Will, and P.S. I Love You. So all in all, I think this is a good album. It is a little bit hit and miss. I think by love songs, they've kind of interpreted that as being slow songs, which love songs not necessarily are. So we could have had things like Oh Darling on here, and Two of Us. I think both of those would fit on this album brilliantly and improved it as well, because there are some sort of throwaways on here. Tell Me What You See is here. Yes It Is quite poor, and they felt the need to put the Buddy Holly cover Words of Love on here, which surprises me really, because I don't know if anybody noticed, but the Beatles were quite good at writing love songs, so why have we had to have this padded out with a cover? I don't really know. But as I say, I like this album. I think it's good. Is it an essential album? No, it's not an essential album. I wish I had the American version with all the bits and bobs, but I don't. And that's love songs. So on to 1980, and in the UK, we got this album, the Beatles Ballads. Now this album didn't get a release in the US, I believe, but it did do really well in Australia, where it got to #1 for 7 weeks. It only got to number 17 in the UK. Now, I think there's a thin line between the Beatles love songs and the Beatles ballads, and that is demonstrated by the track listing, because 10 of the songs on the Beatles ballads were on love songs, which is a bit naughty, I think. Here's the back of the album with the track listing, a little picture from Mad Day Out in Paul's conservatory. There's the track listing, there. The songs that are on here, the ones that were on Love Songs just a couple of years before, Yesterday, Norwegian Wood, For No One, Michelle, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, Something, Long and Winding Road, And I Love Her, She's Leaving Home, Here, There and Everywhere, 10. So half the tracks were on Love Songs. Let's have a look at the vinyl. It didn't come with anything nice at all. It just came in a white sleeve. For some reason, I've written on there, side 1, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. I've no idea why. No idea why. Here's the record. Again, the plain old 1970s Parlophone label. No gatefold with this. So this album, 20 tracks. Again, I played it before I spoke about it, and it sounds awful, as you would expect. There's just no way that you can get 10 songs on one side of vinyl and make it sound good. I'm afraid it's just not possible. It's very thin and very weedy, and I don't like it at all. One little story I can tell you about the Beatles Ballads. I first started work when I was 16, and because I was too young to go down the pub with the people that I work with, I used to, in my lunch hour, I used to spend time in a record shop near work, and I got quite friendly with the bloke that owned the record shop. He got used to seeing me in there every day, browsing and stuff. And he used to give me the promotional displays and stuff. He used to give me them when they'd finished with them. And so I had a huge picture of this sleeve, which is the original artwork that was going to be on the White Album when it was originally going to be called A Doll's House. This was going to be part of the artwork. As I say, he gave me this great big cardboard cutout of it, which I had in my bedroom, and I've managed to dig out a picture of me in my bedroom. I think this would have been around that time in 1980, so I've been about 19, and here it is. So that was my bedroom with all my musical posters and stuff around. The Beatles Ballads, it sounds horrible. It's got half the tracks that are on Love Songs on it. I still bought it. I still bought it. Again, no reason for me to have bought this. But obviously, you know, like I said, these compilation albums are essential for the time that they came out, because if they were the gateway to new Beatles fans, then they're important to those people. For me, this album is not important, and it's pretty disposable. So after rock and roll music and Love Songs and the Beatles Ballads, when in 1982 Parlophone released Real Music, an album purely of songs that were in the Beatles films, I just said no. I'd had enough by then, and by 1982 I sort of had my first flat and had a mortgage, so I had more important things to spend my money on than buying music that I already owned, so I didn't buy it at all. Now, the Real Music album was preceded by a single that did actually have something different on it. It was a medley of 7 songs that had appeared in the films, but only a 30-second snatch of them. I don't know what the hell the point of that was, but it is a bit of a curio. It's a bit different, but they didn't bother putting it on the album. So the Beatles movie medley is, you know, a little bit of a curio and a little bit interesting, if completely rubbish. I don't know if you had this in America, but in the UK around that time, we had these records by Stars on 45 where they would take lots of bits of tracks and then, you know, fit them together with a sort of a backbeat that sort of went and they just merged them all together, and they were quite horrible. And the Beatles movie medley is no different. I don't really see the point of 30 seconds of a song and then going into something else. Complete waste of time. So Real Music I didn't buy. And then later that year they brought out 20 golden greats, or greatest hits, whatever they called it. I can't even remember. 20 greatest hits, I think it was called. 20 greatest hits was going to be a double album, but Capitol said there was absolutely no appetite for another Beatles double album compilation. So it was all crammed into one album, 10 songs aside. As I said before, you can't really put 10 songs on a side of vinyl and it still sound good. So apparently it didn't sound very good at all. I don't know for a fact because I've never heard it, I've never owned it, and I probably won't ever own it. So that is the Beatles 20 greatest hits. So that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching episode 3 of my little mini series. If you're seeing this channel for the first time, please support the channel by subscribing, give the video a like and hit the notification bell. That would be absolutely marvellous. As usual, I want to hear what you think about these albums that we've discussed here, and I hope you're not too disappointed with me that I didn't buy Real Music and 20 greatest hits. And I'll see you for episode 4 in a couple of days. Thanks very much for watching.